we've been running some polls, by the way. I've been running a lot of polls on our YouTube channel.
Yeah, let's go over them.
And well, we're going to be definitely going over one of them today because it's our topic for today. We asked a question. We said, who do you guys want us to do a video or, podcast on? And you guys said Val. And so we said, okay, we will do a conversation on Val, the wildling princess. She is rather interesting and potentially what could happen with her in Winds of Winter, given she doesn't even really show up, until John. We first see her when John meets Mance Rayder there at the beginning of Storm of Swords. And then she really only appears in a handful of chapters. She's mentioned a few times, but a lot of people think she could play a big role in the Winds of Winter, or maybe she's a nobody. It could go a lot of different ways with
Yeah.
her. But some common theories around Val is that she is a secret Targaryen. Of course, everyone's a secret Targaryen given her sort of blonde hair. There's theories that she could actually be a woods witch. There's theories she could be Nisa. There's theories she might be John, a love interest for John. I've heard some say that she could be she could love John and then she could die, and then it could end up being John and Dany in the end. But it's just another one of those sort of relationships to get over. But then at that point, John will have loved two wildlings and then falls in love with a Targaryen princess. So I don't know. I kind of have what I think is going to happen with her, but we can go over a lot of these things so just sort of your initial thoughts on Val as a character. What do we think is going to kind of happen with her in Winds of Winter and going forward?
Well, she's cool. One of the reasons she's cool is that she is almost she's like wildling royalty, right? So Dala, her sister, is married to the king beyond the wall, Mance Rayder, and she is interesting. I think when we read her, she's beautiful. So from the perspective of like Jon Snow and others who are commenting on her appearance and things, they're all just struck by how beautiful she is. And a lot of these theories about her being a Targaryen and so on come from the fact that, one, she's a princess. Two, it's her facial features, her hair, her eyes, and things like that too, right? And I think she's great. I think she's really interesting, very intriguing. Comes in there in the most recent book that we have, up at the wall. And I don't know. John is sort of a fan favorite. People love John. And he's up here going to be leading the charge. He's the front line of defense against the White Walkers, and you have Val there with him. She's looked on favorably by Stannis and others too. So like this idea, I mean, in Westeros, we're kneelers, we kneel to a king or to a queen. And so when we look at their hierarchy, even though Ygritte tells us that doesn't really exist there, they did have a king. Okay. who had a wife, who has a child, and they have an aunt / sister in Val. So there you go. I actually have later on in the show, I'll bring up sort of another connection to King's blood and to the idea that we might have royalty beyond the wall. It's just interesting. I think she's cool. There's not a lot known about her. There are some crazy things involving the Pink Letter and maybe a wildling conspiracy. We've mentioned that before. The idea that she and Tormund could be helping. They could be secretly communicating with Mance Rayder, plotting to take over Melisandre, using Melisandre. Shireen Baratheon doesn't look very well in Val's eyes. She wants her dead, right?
Yeah, her and Melisandre definitely don't see eye to eye, to say the least. So just a quick rundown on some of the events we see with her. So we first sort of see her in A Storm of Swords. Remember, Clash of Kings ends with John basically being captured after we kill Qhorin Halfhand, and he's kind of like forsaken his vows. He's going to go with the wildlings, and then he's immediately brought into Mance Rayder's tent, and we're going to meet him. And this is where we begin to meet a lot of the wildlings that are going to be a big part of the next arc. So Val's there. We learn that she, stole this guy Jarl, right, who's a wildling raider. And unfortunately, this Jarl, right, who seems like he was going to be maybe her initial love interest, he dies climbing the wall, right? He falls off, but she ends up being there at Castle Black, and is there for a lot of the events going on when Jon's Lord Commander and Stannis is there and Melisandre is there. And now I'd say she's kind of up in limbo. I mean, obviously, she's described as being incredibly beautiful. So even beyond that of just like wildlings, or through the lens of the Night's Watch, who don't really see women, who could view, any woman theoretically, right, as like incredibly
Hmm.
beautiful, she's described as being very beautiful. The men of the Seven Kingdoms consider her a princess, but it's to the free folk, she's merely Dala's sister. She unsuccessfully begs Stannis to spare Mance Raider, right? But then we know Mance ends up living through the glamour, and all of that. She does not join in any of the prayers to R'hllor that Stannis's men and Melisandre are there doing. Jon actually sends her on like a mission to try and bring peace terms to Tormund Giantsbane,
Yeah.
and then she returns. She brings Tormund. This is where Jon is, impressed with her, and it seems like seems like a romance is beginning to build. Then, unfortunately, Jon's stabbed, and that's kind of really where we leave it, except that she's mentioned in the Pink Letter
Yeah.
as bring your wildling princess with her.
Yeah. So what's interesting, you said, unfortunately, Jon is stabbed and all this stuff. Like Matt, does he come more attractive when he's brought back? I mean, is that something? Is he now special? He's just a
I don't
bastard
know.
right now. But like, if Val's looking for that guy with an edge, right? I mean, just kind of comically, like Jon Snow. I don't know when it's the kid at school who gets a scar and it comes in the day he's got the scar and
Right.
everyone's like, yeah, this kid's cool, right? It's his day. I feel like that's gonna be Jon, and Val's gonna be like, oh, what's up? But I don't know, man. That one of our old videos that was really well received was the idea that they might they might get together. That might be a thing. And one of the reasons for that is Jon is trying to do this whole like let's unite, let's show people that even though he's a bastard, right? He's Eddard Stark's bastard. He's from Winterfell. He's got big time connections, and now he gets voted up to be Lord Commander. So if he can show them and help sort of unite the two groups, that would be great. There's another wildling, and I was going to save it for later, but Garrick Kingsblood, who comes down and like his three daughters are married off to Queen Salisa's men and stuff. So they're trying to do some of that. So since there is, I guess, a foundation for those sort of alliances, why not maybe Jon and Val just to really sure it up? But there's still a lot of craziness going on right now.
Yeah. So, well, I guess for me, one of the things I think about her is, keep in mind what's going to be the sort of initial interesting thing is the fallout of Jon's death. That is going to be the most immediate sort of crisis that we face going on up at the Night's Watch, especially now that Stannis is going to be gone. Remember, in the show, the way it goes down is Jon stabbed by some people who aren't even there in the books, like one being Sir Alistair Thorne.
Mm-hmm.
And then Jon's brought back, and Stannis is off doing his thing, and it's different because the Pink Letter is different. The Pink
Mm-hmm.
Letter in the show says, "I've got your brother," and then Sans ends up showing up, and okay, here we go.
Yeah.
Well, it says nothing about Rickon in in the Pink Letter. So some of the things I think about, to talk about Val, you're gonna have to talk a little bit about Stannis and Jon, and even potentially some theories out there. I think I'm beginning to believe less and less and less in the idea that Jon and Dany are going to get together. I do actually think that a potential scenario could exist that, regardless of how it all works out, I'm starting to think Jon may end up just going back up into like the true north with at the end of this thing, like regardless of how it sort of works out, and maybe he will then go with Val. Maybe Val will be his sort of princess, and we don't get a scenario in which Jon and Dany get together. Another scenario would be that Val wants nothing to do with him because he's going to be brought back by Melisandre and R'hllor, which she is sort of out on. So that could cause her to sort of be out on him. I think the most likely scenario is, we've still yet to do Hardhome in the show. Hardhome happens, and then Hardhome happens, Jon brings all the wildlings from Hardhome to the Wall, and that's what ultimately causes him to be killed. Hardhome has yet to happen in the books, so I think it's possible maybe she will go to Hardhome now that Jon's dead, try to bring people back or just try to save people, and maybe she dies there. There is a character in the show who I have to look up. I always forget her name because she's at Hardhome and she dies, and I always forget her name. She's a show only character. You know, the woman, she has like a young kid, and then she's
I got it right here. Yeah, it's Karsi, was a spear wife.
Karsi. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so for a while, the big a theory was that she was essentially filling the role of Val in and yeah, so that was something people thought. Let me get this pulled up here. So yeah, so Karsi, remember, yeah, she's only in that episode. She's at Hardhome, and then she dies. She's killed. She's killed by the White Walkers, and I think she's actually turned into a White as well. So I could see Val being this. This could be her sort of spirit or whatever in the way the show does it. So if we try to use that as some sort of logic to move forward, I think you could do that. But I think I'm leaning more towards the idea. I think she's definitely going to Hardhome for sure, and then a lot of it is going to depend on other players. Stannis, a lot of these people.
Yeah.
Got a super chat here. Thank you, Quentin, very much. Don't think Dany will know about Jon's resurrection initially. Yeah, I definitely don't think Dany will.
Yeah. So, and that's the thing, like people, when news get out, who is going to know about the assassination of Jon Snow? How will that change? I think, things for him at Castle Black, the whole, his watch has ended, right? That could be a thing where his watch has ended, and now he's going to what? Does that allow him to openly marry Val? Does that allow him now to take a seat at Winterfell? Ready for some tinfoil here. We've got a couple theories. We're going to get into a couple of these different things because it's a big discussion on Val. But for me, Dany goes north in the show. You want to look at some things. You just brought up a show thing where we had the spear wife leader there at Hardhome. Matt saying perhaps that could be Val in the book, but the show didn't know what to do because they didn't make a Val character. So boom, they have to create something there. Does Dany go? I mean, does she go all the way up? And do we have all of this stuff go down with her and her dragons up at Winterfell? It's a lot. And I've said this, like, there's a lot of events that has to happen. Like for going into Winds of Winter, like she's doing her own thing. She's invading when she invades King's Landing, all that stuff. If she's doing all of that and occupying King's Landing, or she's dealing with young Griff, or Cersei's doing her thing, there's just so many players in the South that you have someone like Val show up. Like, why does George write her in? Is it to make a Targaryen connection? Is it just something for Jon? Is it to be a leader of the wildling people? And is she going to help, unite, I guess, the two groups and be at Winterfell? Maybe they have to fall back to Winterfell at some point, and she's there. She looks a lot like Dany. I mean, I'm not saying that who knows that the show would do something as crazy as to like move Dany north when she doesn't move there in the book. We don't know. I mean, people are already raging at the idea that she would burn down the city, and Matt and I find a lot of evidence that she might do that, and that might be her, like her ending again. Because she does that, why would she go? I mean, I don't know. There's so many different things, like with the sequence of events too. Like Matt, you've often said that in the show, those events that happen at Winterfell, like we think maybe that's your end game, right? That might be your end scenario. And is Danny in that, or are these things happening simultaneously? Something happening in the north, and then something happening in
Right.
King's Landing. I mean,